Hi, my name is Colin Graham, and I'm the guest animation director on the October AnimChallenge group. And this month we're looking at the 3-hit combos. In this video, I'm going to look at the one of the runner-up animations from Andrey Omelchenko. Hopefully I said his name correctly. If I didn't, I apologize. And it's using the Tom and Jerry cartoon character. So let's have a look at that. So I'll just play it for us through once or twice. So we can see that we've got the Tom character with the Tom rig from Tom and Jerry, and he's doing some cool spin moves and kicking these little balls here off the top of these different objects here, and kicking this little ball into the sky. So yeah, let's dive right in and start to look at this. So there's this is a runner up, and it's a really nice piece of animation, and there's some really skillful use of the rig here. There's really nice poses, and there's a really good sort of use of arcs, and this is actually quite complicated to be able to manipulate and spin characters like this, and Andrey's done a really good job with that. And there's a good sense of weight on the character overall, and a sense that the forces, the movements that he's doing are all kind of coming from generally initiated from the force is transferred correctly through the body for the kind of moves that he's doing. And another thing I think that Andrey's done really, really well here is he's managed to kind of hold the right poses and kind of allow our eye to see what's going on throughout the piece. There's a very, I saw a lot of the comments for this piece, and I think one thing that everybody sort of kind of agrees on is it is a very smooth looking piece, and not in a negative way, actually in a very positive way. It's actually very clean and very smooth, so it's very, very well done. So let's talk a little bit about the staging. Actually, what I want to do here is I want to analyze some of the things that I think that work really, really well, but I want to offer a set of improvements. There are things that in this sequence of animation that although it's very, very skillfully done, they stop it from being a sort of a competition winner. And these are things that I've looked a little bit at some of Andrey's other work, and I know that he's pretty serious about continue to do these sort of challenges and test animations, and hopefully this will kind of give him some feedback so that maybe he can be a winner in future competitions. So these are the details to take an animation which is really, really good, and to kind of get it up to that next that top tier level. Let's see if we can get this to a point where we can win a competition. So staging and storytelling. Well, there's always a sort of a debate about what is the purpose of doing these Anim challenges and these exercises. And as an animator, I have the impression that would you want to focus on just on the mechanics and focus on the skill of actually animating something. But at some point, in all of our sort of careers and progressions, we need to start thinking like directors. We need to start thinking about the components of storytelling. And why that's important is because as an animator, you're working on a project that has a direction, that has a motivation. Like you will never animate anything professionally in your career which is simply a test of animation. It always is a part of a bigger story, or a part of a concept, or part of a narrative that you're trying to develop. So, it's just a case of looking at the scenario here. What do you want to do? Well, I want to do this cool spinning animation, and how do you kind of tell a story with it? What does the background tell us about it? What are these balls supposed to be? Why is Tom kicking the balls off there? Is he angry at them? Could we give, could the balls be something, that he's unhappy with? Are they, it could be Christmas ornaments, right? You could tell a story about a cat who doesn't like Christmas ornaments, and then he's like smashing Christmas ornaments, and then you could do some cool things where they kind of explode into little particles, and some easy to do kind of things, so that would kind of give it some context. And another thing that it's always worth mentioning, this is something that we often forget as animators when we're just thinking purely about, what should I animate, is trying to think about what is this character thinking? What's the story of this character? What are the thoughts going through his mind? What motivates him to want to kick these balls? Does he like them? Does he hate them? Is he mischievous? Do the balls belong to somebody else and he's trying to get rid of them? Is he what is his sort of his inner story? And this is something, like when animators are animating on like the movie Tangled, they brought in these elder Disney animators, and they said, oh yes, you've done a very nice job animating these lovely looking, smooth looking characters with lots of textures and lots of detail. And but the question they asked was, yes, but what is the girl thinking? What's going on in her mind? And so this is kind of missing from the overall scene here, and I think it's a question that kind of needs to be answered. I don't want to propose the answer. It's just that next time starting a challenge like this is to think about what is the context of the story going to be, and the little things that you can put into that as an animator to help sort of set the scene. They also help inspire you and inform your choices about how you're going to move the character and how you're going to initiate movements, the speed and the intention and the intensity, facial expressions. These things are all going to be informed from the context that or the little story that you're kind of creating. So one of the things that I think is important when you're animating a known character is to sort of immerse yourself a little bit into the types of actions that character does. So this is a really neat looking animation, but it doesn't really fit. It's got a kind of a martial arts kind of look to it. And it does have some nice little feline qualities to it. It almost looks like, when a cat kind of falls from something and they spin. So I just want to kind of look at this sort of spin here. This sort of like spin thing here is kind of looks like the way a cat would look, if it was falling off something. Cats can do but this isn't necessarily in the character of Tom, and that's not that's not necessarily a problem. It doesn't make this a bad animation. It's just there's an kind of an intention, there. The whole thing will appeal more and will be more of a competition winner type animation if the character kind of matches what the thing is that character, that kind of matches with what the expectation of the character is. Or unless you want to do something really creative and like flip the expectation, do something ironic where the character acts in a way that is, the opposite of what we would expect. And then you're creating, even in an 11-second animation, using, sort of irony of the context, a juxtaposition of the character in the context. That can help, it helps make it memorable. It helps make your animation memorable, so that when all the animation, we look at all the sort of animation, in order, all the submissions in order, it stands out, right? Like if we remember your animation, it's more likely to be a winner. So and these are all things that as you sort of progress as an animator, if you can answer those questions in your animation as you create them, you're not having, and you can ask those questions to your supervisors and your directors, then you're meeting their needs more. And that's just simply going to make you a better, more desirable animator to have on a professional animation team. So let's take a look at some. Let's take a look at some of the poses here that kind of caught my attention. So I was kind of thinking, and actually, let's talk really quickly about the looping. Actually, there's a little bit of a missed opportunity here. And again, it comes back to what are these balls and what are they doing? So the balls are in the frame at the beginning of the frame. And he kicks the ball off, and he kicks the other ball off, and he kicks the ball off, and he stands here, and then the balls reappear. So this is just a little simple thing, but since the effort was put into making this animation loop, we need to do something about these balls kind of looping. Do they need to appear? Should they appear at the beginning of the frame? Does he, and this is his first target, so I can actually see there's a little bit of a composition issue here. So let's take a quick look at that. His eye lines. His eye line is here. this is his target. This is what he's looking at. And the question is, does he notice it? Right? Boom. And so, but when his eyes pop open, because his eyes are this nice bright color here, what we want to do is, we kind of want those eyes to be, more on this side over here like this, because so he's kind of looking across in that direction. That's an important thing for us to see, because it helps draw our eye and it helps us understand that this is the first thing. It's also like, if you wanted to just do something here simple like this, just have these little balls pop up at other things at the beginning. So they just kind of, it's like this is like a little bowling alley thing, and it kind of shoots these balls up. You could do something like that. Let's move forward here through the animation. So now he's kind of looking where he's going. There's some. I'm not a super big fan of the arms here, but we're going to come back and we'll talk about those in a little bit. Okay, and then so everything kind of sweeps down here into this sort of arc, and there's this sort of circular motion here. And so, like, again, if we talk about the ball coming in there and he kicks that ball off, probably what we need to do then is also introduce this ball, the second ball over here at some point. Okay, and then he kind of kicks it here. And it's the same thing here. This face here, this pose on this face, it is the 3D character rig, but it doesn't particularly look like a Tom face. So I think what we'll do is we'll kind of look at some of the references, and we'll kind of see what's going on here. Again, here he's got a kind of a happy face, and there's lots of interesting stretch. The ears kind of folded down here, which maybe doesn't help. I think it looks like it's trying to kind of come around here, and there are definitely references for that facial expression, and it's important to kind of talk about that, because, and I love the stretch. This is great. I like this little stretch thing that you're kind of creating here. Boom. It's really nice when you kind of drag those things into position. The head kind of stops in one frame, so the chin kind of goes boom, boom. So like that line right there, maybe it just needs to be, there's a very, very slight difference in those two frames. We keep the stretch in, of course, by all means. The silhouette of the hand's kind of lost here, which is a little bit problematic. And I have some thoughts about this in the tail too. There's some tangents and stuff like this that need to be kind of played with. And then he kind of comes across here, and again, these drawings right here, these faces right here, they don't really feel like Tom. So we're gonna take a look at some of the references. And then he kind of kicks here. And we'll come back and we'll look at this overlapping frame here, because that's kind of there's a couple of little tricks here I noticed when I was looking at this that I'm not sure whether they're working in our favor or not, but we can talk about them anyways. And then he comes down here, and in his eyes we kind of lose the blacks of his eyes as his eyes come shut here. Like he kind of shuts them kind of slowly, and this ends up being a kind of an odd looking frame here. And yeah, I guess the question is how close does this look to, like can we get it kind of closer to the Tom and Jerry model? So let's take a look at let's take a look at a referencing and just kind of like put those ideas in our mind. Okay, I've brought up a clip from Tom and Jerry episode 51. I was able to find this on YouTube just by Google searching for that. Around frame 2000, I downloaded it, and around frame, I'm just going to look at it here around frame 2000. So this is just kind of to refresh ourselves. What does Tom look like? I'm just going to kind of step through some of these frames. I just want to point out a couple things here. Look at the quality of the hand poses here. Love this one where they kind of splay out the little finger, right? And the poses are nice and clear, and the animators here have kind of made an effort. They've made an effort to kind of, open those hand poses up. Nice lines of action, nice, complementary lines through the body here. Nice line of action through here. So these are really tricky things to get with 3D characters. They don't tend to want to deform and give us those shapes. This is one of those things where But you need to pay attention to that because you are working from a character that is understood by folks to be a 2D character. Again, that little pinky finger, I like to stick the pinky finger out here. That's a nice classic pose there. So this sort of like pose, this is a classic. He kind of sticks his bottom lip out. Tom does that pose a lot. And actually, the funny thing about it is, I think his eyes are actually a different color than the model that's been provided. Just for authenticity, you might want to actually change the shader color. Look at that. The fingers, 2 fingers together and 1 finger apart. Little fingers kind of splayed out here. Again, another thing to kind of look at too is look at the way that the toes are kind of posed. And you see here how the animators there kind of kept the body in one position. Here you kind of zoop, 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 stays in position. It's classic animation sound, zoop, zoop, zoop. Hand poses are always clear. Hand poses here, even this hand pose here, these lines, they all kind of work together. These are like, gesture drawings. The hand pose is nice and clear here. Look at the foot poses. They're not flat feet. They use the little knurls and the tools. That's that classic Tom face right there. Right? So one of the things about Tom is he does that entire action in his teeth. You never see his teeth. So yes, there's teeth in the Tom rig. I think those teeth make him feel off model, and then there's a face there that you can kind of look at, and there's again, just taking a look at those feet. Even when the feet are flat on the ground, they don't feel like they have a flat. They kind of feel like they have a little bit of meat to them. Again, that's a face there. That's that angry Tom face. So we'll just see if there's another clip here. Little baby mouse comes running in here, throws the dynamite on. Just wanted to point out something here because we're looking at this. This little baby mouse here, he's running. Okay, and his legs are kind of going, and he has that sort of that sort of that inertia. Looks a little bit like Mario, a little bit like trying to speed up. It's very cute. Okay, so he brings the Tom. So okay, let's just see here, Tom. Okay, we're looking for expressions that we can kind of use as kind of reference. There's that expression there. You see where he kind of scrunches his face here, and then he kind of looks. He does a kind of a double take there. So he goes boom, boom, pops his eyes. That's something you could use in the other animation as well. Even when he opens his mouth, we don't see Tom's teeth. And I think that's, for me, the thing about that model that throws me off is seeing the teeth. Okay, we're going to step through here. I won't spend too much more time looking at this, but just to look at the sort of the clarity of the hand poses. Look, there's his happy pose there. Love that pose. That's a classic hand pose there. You see the way this hand's kind of coming up and around. There's a happy Tom face there. You could use that as a reference. Love the feet. Again, look at these hands here. Those hands are these characters have these vaudevillian style hands, like Mickey Mouse hands, right? Where they have like the white gloves for the hands, and these hands, the animators are always making a choice to kind of show the silhouettes of these hands on frame whenever they're on frame. And then you zip off he goes. Okay, so we've got some ideas here for what Tom's kind of facial expressions look like, and so going back into the original animation. I would be inclined, actually, let's open it in our keyframe MP tool. So we can see that the teeth poses here, I would be inclined to not open his mouth through all of this here, right? With these facial expressions that are right here, because we saw that in the we saw those expressions in the reference. Tom does all these actions without opening his mouth, and it's a funny thing. I noticed this on another set of animation that I was studying years ago. I was looking at the video game for Quantum of Solace, the James Bond movie. It was Quantum of Solace. It was one of the James Bond movies. It was the first, or James Bond video games. It was the first one with Daniel Craig, and it was the one that wasn't based on Casino Royale. It was a separate story. But anyway, I was looking at all the animation for it, and they've got Daniel Craig running around and he's attacking everybody. He doesn't open his mouth at all. And on the 3D character, it looked weird. And I remember saying to one of the other animators, "Man, these guys at whatever company that animated it, they skimped out on the facial animation." And I said, "Yeah, I wonder what Daniel Craig's facial expressions looks like." So we went back and we looked at that famous chase scene in Casino Royale where he chases the guy Sebastian Foucan, where he chases him through the cranes, the construction site, and on the cranes, and then he jumps. Daniel Craig's jumping down and fighting and punching, and the whole time everything he's sprinting full tilt like a full-on Tom Cruise kind of run, and he does not open his mouth. And that's just how he does it. That's how he plays that character, because a character who's got his mouth open, is gasping for breath, and he's all tired out, and it doesn't make him look like super strong and heroic. Anyway, the point is it looked weird on a 3D character, and we kind of thought it was wrong. But in this case, that's what Tom's supposed to look like. So going back there to the reference footage of Tom from the Tom and Jerry cartoon, and I'll just kind of bring that up here side by side. Right. And so we kind of see that kind of, that sort of, cat face. And so we need to kind of try to preserve that. And it's always a thing, when you're kind of dealing with the rigs, does the rig allow you to kind of do that? But it bears repeating, because it's the thing that when we watch this animation, it doesn't feel quite right. This character doesn't feel quite right when we look at him in this, and I don't know if this is necessarily the case for everybody's animation or not, or is more stands out here, but because it caught my attention the very first time I saw it, it means that it provokes a reaction in the audience, and the reaction is real. It has to be, addressed. And so the way I would suggest to do this is to kind of look at the sort of poses that are in the animation and see if you can find poses that kind of match. If you're typically when you want to do, you just did see Tom's teeth there when he hit the ground. So sometimes the animators take the liberties and do that, but typically you just don't see his teeth. All right, so let's look at a couple of the other. So let's look at the hand poses. We talked about those hand poses a little bit. So here, how can you get poses that are a little bit more? Let's pause here and see, where did we go here? Right here. So it's about kind of getting that little finger to kind of splay out, maybe the other two fingers together, and then the thumb to kind of stick out like that. There's here you see there's no silhouette in between those, right? Here there's no silhouette in between these fingers. All right, and I'm just going to remove all my bookmarks here. So this is a thing where trying to be a little bit more faithful to the reference animation for this character, and also you should point out this is actually just going to make your animation just simply look better as well too. So you can kind of that could be kind of improved here. Again, same thing here. Instead of having the hand be flat, like the hand be sort of flat. Well, I'd be backwards if I did it. And be kind of flat like this, with everything kind of lining up. You want to kind of angle it or else angle it. And these stretching out the pinky fingers is a nice way to show tension in the animation too. So I'm a bit obsessed about hands actually. I just love really good hand poses. Okay, this is a really interesting thing here. So you got the hand kind of partially sticking out of the head. I'm kind of okay with a limb disappearing behind a character, because if it's kind of sticking out here, it's just kind of sort of appearing. And in here you may want to just keep that limb behind. Bring this, let us focus on this limb here. Keep this limb here, just get rid of that there. But then also this pose right here. Open up the hand a little bit more. Right? Open up the hand a little bit more here, and maybe bring the elbow out on this one. And then, as you're kind of rotating around, then bring this here out. Again, finger poses. We want to see these silhouettes and these finger poses here. Again, let's see this finger. And then, so what you do is you allow us to focus on one thing, which is going to be this hand kind of shooting through. If this hand isn't adding anything to the scene, then it's just distracting us. So, it's okay to hide things behind the body. It's better if they hide behind the body than they stick out completely. This tail looks like it is a little bit problematic to kind of, okay, this is exactly the problem with 3D animation. This character is all lumpy here. And there's really not much you can do about it. Now you got a nice curve here, right? But again, you want to draw over this, and this foot kind of comes in here, and it breaks the possibility of this clean line. Right, it breaks the possibility of this clean line, and actually the foot actually goes through the little canister here, which I didn't notice, and then then this line, and probably this line needs to kind of come back. So because he's kind of put his foot here, it feels like you maybe sort of like kind of moved it too far, and then you're kind of stuck with the foot being out here. So that would mean maybe bringing this foot back so that it kind of starts in a little bit more here like this, right? And then when it kind of stretches off, the toe is kind of back here, it stretches off, boom, and then that allows you to create that curve there. I can't tell if this foot is forwards or backwards. It looks like he kicks it with his heel here. Yeah. So again, this foot over here, it's not really adding anything to the equation. You could probably, I would be tempted to just hide it behind the body for those frames. Be careful about these tangents here, kind of connecting up. Try to preserve this negative space, and then this arm here. So you've got this line of action. Oh, my line of action there. You've got this nice curve here, but Tom's head doesn't conform with the curve. This arm, you want it to complement. You want to get these to kind of complement and try to preserve this curve here. And then this tail, this is a tricky one to get right. Tail, you probably want to go in something more like that, and it's something that when we're looking at Dane's animation with the kangaroo, just how beautiful the line work is and how complementary each line in the design of the character is one to the other. Again here, so kicking with the heel, yeah. And here, when he's kicking, the ball kind of jumps up for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why it kind of goes up and then it kind of comes out. And then you could stretch this ball as well, too. You could deform it. Just put a little cluster on it. Just put a little cluster on it and just maybe deform it in or stretch it. And this is just, the number one thing I look for when I'm looking at animators' work is the simple stuff like the hand poses. But a thing that, and the sort of physics, but when I see a scene where the simple objects aren't animated, it's kind of like looking at a life drawing where the artist has drawn all the body and then just not bothered to draw the hands and the feet because I don't like drawing hands and feet. And we always just say that when we're looking at life drawing is like, first thing you do is look at, can this artist draw hands and feet? And it shows that there's a sort of a thoroughness, to the animation. So I would recommend to add some animation onto that as well too. And then when the ball lands here in the background, it kind of stops. Right? I know I'm just sort of picking on this, but it's. I remember watching an interview with an animator, and he was at one of the big VFX houses, and he was talking about spending time animating bouncing balls. He spent a month just animating bouncing balls. And he's like, this is somebody who'd been animating for, 20 years or something like that at the time. And he was saying, I went back and I started studying that because I realized that I never, the last time we really probably studied animating a bouncing ball was in your first year of college. Well, you know a lot more now, but you also can do a much better job. And it's animating physics. It's about studying and animating physics and making things feel right. And those studies are important to do. They're sort of analogous with, doing life drawing and how life drawing helps with animation, or doing, sketches and studies of paintings before you do the sort of magnum opus masterworks that people do. It's like, it's about knowing how to do something very simple and believable and animating it in a very simple, believable way. And in the worst case scenarios, if you don't like it, just, learn how to use the physics component of your software and make a little physics animation if you want to do that too. So again, the same thing here. Let's just look at the mechanics coming through here. So again, here's a pose, but the curve isn't quite here. The curve isn't quite where it needs to be. It's kind of more of a Y shape. Hands. And it's just thinking about, and I think, I'm using the Keyframe Pro here. I really like using the software. I've just started sort of recently using it. And I think, going in and being able to draw over top of your animation and being able to sketch in over top, you could take these drawings into any sketch program and draw over top of them, and then try to figure out what you're kind of aiming for here. Being able to draw nice clean curves. I like how you're dragging certain things like the ears and trying to give them a floppy quality, but the curves that you create need to add to the pose. Okay, so he comes through here, starting to create the curve here, which is nice. This curve is kind of working. I feel like I can feel the limitations of this rig. There's only a certain limit to what you can get. The end here, just be kind of careful with how these things kind of either break the silhouette, or you're going to kind of play with where it goes. And then the poses here as well too. Separating those little fingers out, because that's the style of Tom. Here, you've got the hand behind the head. You could just get rid of it completely. There's a tiny little bit of negative space here. I guess that's kind of part of it is here you could just have the elbow sticking up. And then you can have the elbow sticking up here. And then it looks like this kind of broke. This pose looks a little bit broken here. And then he kind of drops down to here. So this hand actually doesn't follow a nice clean arc through here. As I'm kind of looking at it, I'm kind of realizing that hand on the back is kind of boink, 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 boink around. It's kind of popping up and down and changing. It's changing its kind of arc. This pose is actually a little bit nicer. This is a nice spot here. Again, this is where you want your kind of nice hand poses. And here you might want to break the silhouette a little bit more and get the hand away from the body. Again, this curve just something feels a little bit awkward about that. And then you go into the stretch here. Here, this because this hand is white, you could just put this hand right out in front of the body like that. You could put it inside the body if you wanted to. And there's this tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of space here that kind of shows. And the thing is here, you have this curve that's kind of coming off here, and the head angle probably needs to be more like that. But you got this curve coming off the body, and then the arm kind of wrecks it. But then all these other curves, actually, all the other curves are kind of working together here. So, so you kind of almost got it here. The foot here kind of lifts off in a way that kind of breaks its curve. I'm just going to remove all that so you can kind of see, but you've got a whole bunch of these sort of curves in the body that are starting to work together here. Here, this head feels a little bit cranked. I understand what the idea here is trying to do is here, but I think Andrey's trying to get Tom to kind of see that. But here what you might want to do is, this is where you may want to twist the upper body a little bit more. And so that the head kind of comes around. And you probably want to go from here. I think I'm just going to stepping through here. Just watching what the head's doing. It's a bit tricky here. You might want to keep the head facing front, and then when he comes up to here, then flip it to turn it. So here I would not turn the head. I would keep the head facing flat back of the head to the character, and then pow, because this is kind of initiating a motion. This is okay, and then let's think about our curves here, a line of action here. Okay, and then where this is going to go, I wonder if this foot should just be all the way around. This feet should be kind of all the way around. And remember the thing I talked about with the fingers, is displaying the little finger. You can do the same thing with the toes. You can separate those toes a little bit. They don't need to be sort of solid chunks. They can, you can try to give some articulation. Is when I splay my little finger, like I said before, that creates tension. If you hold your hand like that, you can feel your tendons. You can feel, and that translates to a drawing that looks like it carries tension. Okay, so this arm here kind of comes to here, and then it kind of comes forward and back, forward to here, and then back here again. And it kind of draws around here. Again, a nice hand pose here. If possible, try not to block the eyes. I would not show his teeth here. I would do that Tom Ooh face here instead. Yeah, and do it through there. He just looks. That does not look like Tom from Tom and Jerry. Looks like Tom stole some of the old lady's dentures. So it's not working for that. So I would. Yeah, this arm here kind of pops back and forth and kind of changes through a bunch of shapes. Watch these tangents here. Just bring it down here. Let's bring it down here so it's open. This arm here. Okay. It looks like the elbow's broken here, and really what you're going for here is a curve. And then you want to open these fingers up, and then this is a case where splaying the little finger would really, really help. Here you can kind of push these toes apart, boom, like that, and try to, even although the model here doesn't really, has this little bulge on his belly, and if this is a 2D animation, they would draw that. In, but you can try to do the best you can. The ears are kind of collapsing here, and I think this is physical, like it's you're kind of following the floppiness in the physics, but we have to remember that you need to have good clean drawings. The drawings still have to, like, this is when we say appeal in terms of 3D animation. I always think about it on model. One of the 12 principles of animation is being on model, solid drawing and on model. And with a 3D rig, what I think that means is don't push the rig to a point where it no longer looks like the character, right? That it's supposed to be, or working within the limits, making choices that work within the limits of the character. So I'm wondering if maybe these ears are kind of creating shapes that don't look Tom enough. Okay, so this is nice here. You've done a really nice job. Well, it's not quite as nice as I thought. It's a pretty good job of keeping him keeping him in the same screen space. I like this. This is really hard to do. I've had to do this on a bunch of animations in the past for Naruto, which is a Japanese anime. We did a video game for that, and had a lot of characters spinning on the spot, and depending on where the axis is of the character, it's tricky to keep it in position. And this is pretty effective here at keeping that spin, so we can kind of keep our eye on it. What you do is if Tom had a bum, if he had a little cat butthole, we'd be staring right at his butthole. But he doesn't. But it spins around here. using the rig here well to sort of create these curves. Oh, look, there it is. There's the little finger sticking out. That's neat. That's neat. It's almost a nice pose here. I love here how you start to bend the toes here, start to create different shapes, but a little bit of staggering in those toes if it's possible with the rig. And then the same thing here. This one you just need to kind of pop. You kind of need to pop in those fingers to create some space. But using the tail here to create complementary curves, which is good. Here, I don't know if it's possible just to I think you just hide the teeth on this rig and see if it makes sense. I bet if you hide the teeth on this rig, it would look better. Okay, so and again, when Tom comes down here, the hands. This is a really weird drawing. I say it. I intentionally use the term drawing here because. This particular frame, if it was drawn as a pose, just looks bizarre. I see what you're trying to do here, trying to kind of bring the hands kind of in together, but there might be a better. There's definitely going to be a better shape for that there. This looks like it's the in between of here. Okay, here. And here, so you're trying to create an arc for this to come down. So this one here almost needs to come out in a foreshortened arc out here like this. You need to kind of think of the arc that this is going to come into. Oh, it comes down all the way over here. Hold on. This one, this arc here needs to be cleaned up. Regardless, I'm not sure of you have to kind of go. I have to be able to kind of see where this kind of goes in the rig to kind of give exactly the right suggestion. Been trying to create that sort of slapping down action. Okay, let's talk about my pet peeve. Let's take a look at that foot right there. Boom. There is not a lick of animation on that foot. It has not moved from there to there. Even when he brings his weight forward, there's nothing going on the feet. This is where you need to kind of splay those toes and pull those toes apart a little bit. This creates the feet and hands in contact. When they make contact, things are squishy, and and this is where you're showing force. This is where you're showing that the weight is being applied to that part of the body. Even when he brings his pelvis forward here, this heel here probably just needs to lift up a little bit. These toes need to kind of splay and kind of feel like they kind of squish a bit. And then this foot is just sliding and it's kind of going through the floor. You probably need to kind of come up and over with the pelvis through here. Okay, hold on, I'm not sure why our animation is not playing. There we go. Okay. It's because you want that foot on the other side to kick. Okay. And then there's something like really busted with the foot here. You could maybe just even do that in less frames if it's really about trying to get the economy of kind of getting to there. And then this elbow here needs to be, because it bears the weight, it needs to lock in again. The same thing here. I don't see any animation on the hand here. So this is a weight transfer. So between here and here is a weight transfer. Okay. Eye directions. The eyes need to be a little bit more. I'm not sure if they're actually pointing here, but they're also kind of pushed really, really far to the edge of the sockets as well too, and he's become kind of cross-eyed here. Again, I think there's poses in the reference to look at, and then there's a sort of a breaking of the wrist here like this. I see we're trying to bring it around. maybe, yeah, you could, this is going to be a little bit of a trick. I would maybe just go from here all the way around and already have the hand kind of out. Don't bend it kind of back like that in there. Just kind of come out more to this pose first. This is a really tricky thing to do, trying to get between all these things here. Obvious thing, but the foot goes to the ground here. Again, weight transfer, so there's weight going on these fingers here. This is a chance for you to kind of stick those fingers on the ground and kind of bend them up and get some of that weight kind of up on the fingertips. Get the palm of the hand a little bit further up off the ground, so that'll kind of show some tension. This silhouette's kind of collapsing in here a little bit. This hand could almost stay on the ground until you kind of get to about here, and then it can kind of just lift off, boom, boom, lift off, and then kind of go up and around. Here, I'm not sure if this foot sticking out the back here necessarily helps. It reads as a spin. So when I play this, let's play it at full speed. The animation is made to be played at full speed. It reads when you play it at full speed. But it reads because it's a really quick action. And you get that it's a spin. There's a Tom face right there, by the way. No teeth. There's a way to flip vertical. Yeah, that's more of a Tom pose there. Just worth pointing out. And again, this is, hey, you got a pose here, which is interesting, but we need a kind of a corresponding pose here. The ears are kind of dragging through here. I think you just go straight from here to there, from here to there. So just try to preserve this shape here. This is the model shape for Tom. This is what Tom's ears are meant to look like. So maybe the sort of general feedback is I would say that maybe you're bending Tom's ears and distorting the shape a little bit too much. What you could do there is when he kind of stops at the top is have him kind of settle, but settle in their key shape, the one that, the on model shape. Yeah, you see right there's a little settle there, but they maintain their shape, which is nice. I say there's a good attempt here at the curves, but I think that here what you may want to do is I'm off camera, but instead of having the curve, trying to bend the hand back like this, is just open the hand up, right? And then open the hand up, and then use that line off the pinky finger to do that. So this I guess is kind of a clap. You could just come in from wider and then pow in one frame. I don't think you need this. I don't think you need that frame right there like that. So you could even go from wider, and so it's kind of a little bit more of a clap. Let's play that at full speed, see if that makes sense. Yeah, it would just be a little bit more punchy as a clap. Boom. There's that hand pose right there is actually pretty good. And then there's the start of this. You see broken up the fingers here like this. So there's lots and lots of little mechanical things, but when the thing is, I got to go back to what I keep saying is the animation is meant to be played at full speed. It's not meant to be studied frame by frame, and so the little things that we're kind of picking in here, these are the nuances that as you work on a shot like this, these are the things that maybe in the second week that you're working on the shot, or in some cases on some pretty big productions, you might be working on a shot for this for like 3 weeks or more for future film. Then these are the sort of the nuances that you kind of need to be able to sort of pull out. this reads, I think why this animation, it works really well is because it actually generally reads very, very well. It's more, the issues for me are a little bit, the sort of prevalent issue is the facial expressions, the teeth, and the sort of the modelness. I would say the modelness or the on-modelness of this looking like Tom and kind of, it's, I didn't work with this rig, so I don't know. But these would be my sort of my comments and my sort of feedback as a director. It would say, like, I think the clients would want us to try to get them to look a little more. Try to keep expressions and keep poses that kind of fit more with Tom. So, this review ended up being a little bit longer and going into a little bit more detail on some of the technical aspects of the animation. And like I said, they only really show up when we're looking at it frame by frame. But they are the things that we sort of encourage to try to push in order to take this animation to the next level. To make this from being in the in the top tier to being at the very being a winning contender. And I've looked at some of Andrey's previous animation on YouTube and previous Anim challenges, and I can see that he's very, very serious about his work, and he keeps putting the effort into constantly push himself with these challenges. So I hope that this feedback will be helpful and useful, and we see some of it incorporated into future challenges. So yeah, I mean, generally speaking, this is a very, very nice piece of animation, and these details are the things that you can do to just kind of push it over the top. I will say one thing about this is that sometimes it's easy to get fatigued with animation. You get to a point and you just don't know if how much further you can go with it. And one of the things that I learned years ago when I was working with another friend of mine who was an animation director, and we worked on a shot that I worked on for about a week, and he at the end of the week, I kind of felt like I'd gone as far as I could go with it. And I thought, I work in video games, right? Like spending a week on a shot on one sequence of animation is a fair amount of time. And then he said he pushed me harder for the week two. Week two, I really thought, I'd ironed at every kink and every detail. I'd gone back over a whole bunch of things, a whole bunch of times, reanimated a couple parts of it. And I really felt like I could not go further. And he sat down with me and he said, no, you can do more. You can, there's more here you can do, more things you can fix. There are things in here that you can improve. So he grounded up for another week. And this ended up being a boss battle at the end of one of the games, and it was pre-rendered sequence. And so after 3 weeks of working on the same sequence, I pushed myself to a level, fixed things and changed things and perfected things. We looked at everything under a microscope day in and day out. And I raised my level in that shot. And this is what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to raise our level inside our shots. So, here the level is very high, but I can see that another week's worth of work and some effort into the thought about creating a context, sound, just adding some simple sound effects to this. And, going back in and looking at those facial expressions, the hand poses, trying to smooth out and clean out some of the arcs on some of the poses. All of these things would take it to that other level, and that would be a new level that you could achieve. So anyway, I wanted to congratulate Andrey on his fantastic work here, and just say thank you very much for having me as a guest reviewer on AnimChallenge for this month. Thanks very much.